Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us to our AJA Wednesday night Zoom series that is live streamed on Facebook and recorded, so you can watch that recording anytime you like on YouTube or on J-Air, where we will be played tomorrow morning on the radio station. This is our special AJA election series that we are running through at the moment. I'd like to remind everybody that we have a variety of guests coming on across our election series, which will be running pre-election. Everything we do, we are so proud to provide a platform for different voices, for different speakers. Just a disclaimer that none of the speakers or the people we invite do we endorse, or is that the opinion of AJA itself. But we are so proud to support grassroots organizations and have differences of opinion that we can host and bring to our audience. Tonight, we have a very special event, Taking on the Greens, Grassroots Jewish Advocacy. We have seen in the past years, the Greens have emerged as Australia's only significant anti-Semitic political party, and they are a threat to the safety of Australian Jews. But across Australia, there are pockets of Jewish people who are fighting back, and they are leading grassroots campaigns against the Greens and often working with other minority groups in their states and territories. Tonight, we hear from two very special, incredible women. The first will be Simonne Whine, the founder of J United, and then we will hear from Roz Mendelle, the founder and co-director of the Queensland Jewish Collective. Thank you so much for our guests for being here tonight and giving up their time. And thank you everyone who's joined us to watch this evening. Thank you, Simonne.
Thank you so much for inviting me here tonight. J United was born out of the events of October 7. It was driven by the urgent need to unite and mobilise the Jewish community. And since then, we've built a powerful network of passionate volunteers, individuals who are committed to make a real difference. And while our impact has been immense, there's always room for more. So if you share our dedication to standing up and taking action, we welcome you to join us. But tonight I'm here to talk about our Put the Greens Last campaign in Paran and how it proved that when we stand together, we don't just make noise, we make real change. Sharon Cooper and I worked together and had spoken for a while about the need to push back against the Greens. Their policies have become extreme, divisive and detached from reality, far from their original environmental mission. Inspired by the successful Queensland Jewish Collective, we connected with Roz and her team, who took on the Greens in Brisbane. They shared their campaign model with us, and together we adapted it for Melbourne. It was a lesson in grassroots collaboration. When communities unite, we are a force to be reckoned with. From the conception to implementation, the entire campaign came together in 4 weeks. In that short time, we developed marketing materials, designed flyers, organised T-shirts and coordinated distribution of flyers to homes across the electorate. At the same time, we recruited volunteers, conducted training sessions and executed the plan at pre-polling booths. It was intense, it was stressful, but the impact made it really worthwhile. We quickly found allies in the Hindu and Iranian community associations, a Christian man and a Jewish woman from J United. People of different backgrounds, but with the same message. The Greens are no longer just about the environment. They are an extreme, divisive force in Australian politics. And in terms of building the campaign, we knew we couldn't do it alone. Funding was tight and we needed resources really fast. So we reached out to Advance, an organisation who was also campaigning against the Greens, and thankfully they agreed to work with us. And they were fantastic, efficient, strategic, well-resourced. They supplied the flyers, the T-shirts and the core flutes and shipped everything to Melbourne, helping us hit the ground running. They also later kindly paid for a volunteer picnic to thank our volunteers for their contributions. Within days, we had hundreds of volunteers stepping forward, concerned citizens wanting to take action. We ran 2 training sessions to prepare them for the polling booths and ensuring they felt confident and equipped to stand their ground. We saw something really quite remarkable, that even the most self-assured people were really hesitant to step up. They weren't sure they had the right words to say or the confidence. But by the end of their first training session of 115 people, they all walked away ready to find their voice. There were challenges that we faced and lessons that we learned. There were sabotage attempts. The Greens infiltrated our online volunteer booking system, signing up fake names to block real volunteers from taking shifts. We caught onto it very quickly as it happened after a negative article was released. We shut it down and had to do everything manually. So they tried to stop us and they failed. In terms of logistics, I don't think we realised how many places we need to be at once. So next time we need to dedicate a team member that's specific to organising the materials to be dropped off to polling locations. And we realised that those volunteer training sessions are essential because one of our elderly volunteers was convinced that he didn't need training and he accidentally went and put on a Greens t-shirt to be with them rather than to be with the Put the Greens Last campaign. It was a funny moment, but proof that preparation is key. There were a few things that stood out. On polling day, we saw a really desperate move. One of the Greens' biggest supporters, a man named Buzz, put up a large sign claiming, "I can't be at every booth today because the advanced volunteers have been aggressive and my volunteers don't feel safe." The problem was he didn't actually have any volunteers. So every day at pre-polling, it was just him standing alone. And those so-called advanced volunteers that he accused of aggression, they were our everyday grassroots community members who had enough and were standing up to the Greens. That moment confirmed it for us. We rattled them. At the same time, we saw something else, the hypocrisy of political leaders who claim to stand for justice but refuse to face the truth. When Adam Bandt was confronted by two 20-year-old Jewish men with direct, concise questions, he had no response. They asked Adam where his kefir was today and why their Jewish school required barbed wire and armed guards. Silence, and it was revealing. A politician who claims to fight for human rights should have an answer when asked about rising anti-Semitism and Jewish community safety. But it showed us a deliberate refusal to acknowledge the consequences of his party's rhetoric. And that silence spoke volumes because he has no defence. The impact that we had, despite the unethical tactics and behaviour from some Greens supporters, is that we succeeded to get the Greens out. We had a strong presence at polling booths every day. We shifted the public perception of the Greens in Paran, and we proved that grassroots activism works, even with no political experience. Since October 7, we've seen a new era of grassroots action, and for too long our community has sat on the sidelines watching politics happen to us, but not anymore. Our Put the Greens Last campaign was just the beginning. We've proven that we can organise, mobilise and take action to create change, not just for ourselves, but for a better Australia. If you'd like to get involved, please feel free to DM me in the chat, or you can email junited.au@gmail.com. Thank you.
Simonne, thank you so much. And we will pop that in the chat as well. If you need further details, you're also welcome to email us at AJA. We can pass on those details for you. Now, we'd like to turn to our Queensland Jewish Collective, Roz.
Hi, everybody. Just a moment, please.
And as always, if you have any questions, please raise your hand and we will go to a Q&A after the presentations.
Roz, you should be with us now.
As you can tell, I have a little visitor here, but that's okay. We are flexible and we roll with the punches, don't we? Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, you're
perfect.
All set to go, Roz.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming to hear us speak, Simonne. It's great to see you, and of course, what you guys did in Pran was really, really incredible. I would love to kind of take you guys through what we've been through since the 7th of October and since we started this organization, and to tell you a little bit about how we did what we did and what the results essentially were. So my name is Roz Mendelle. I'm Israeli. I came to Australia when I married my wife, Chava Mendelle. She's also an Australian Jewish woman, and she had made Aliyah to Israel, and we met there, and now, you know, we're living here together in Brisbane. I'm just pulling up my presentation because I would really love to show you guys some images of the activities that we did in the campaign. Just bear with me for 1 second. Okay. Great, here it is. So when October 7th happened, I was just a marketing manager, and Chava was, well, a writer, but just a nurse. And we had our kids, and we were just doing our thing. We weren't even that connected to the Jewish community. Once the October 7th events happened, which really transformed all of us, we immediately were sort of forced into action, as many of you can relate. And I guess one of the things that I would like to start with, because there are many articles out, or kind of, we get a lot of comments that imply that all of you and all of us are part of this kind of influential, coordinated effort to kind of influence local politics, or to do some kind of coordinated agenda that is all backed by certain figures. And I guess in my mind, the best analogy for this is when you're walking down the street on kind of a cool, crisp day, and suddenly your hair's, if you have hair, it's lifted off your neck and you're hit in the face with a bunch of leaves, right? And you can think to yourself, well, all of these leaves, they wanted to hit me in the face. They were this coordinated effort of leaves that wanted to hit me in the face. But really, the thing that you're ignoring is that cold gust of wind that just carried those leaves with it, right? And that cold gust of wind that forced me, and forced Chava, and forced Simonne, and all of you, and I see Maurice here in the audience, and I see all kinds of people in the audience that I recognize, that forced all of you into action. That cold gust of wind was hate, and the realization that this safe society that we loved and supported and want to be a part of is not so safe, and is not so nuanced. And the intolerance of parties like the Green Party and their violent rhetoric were creating an environment that basically was this absolutely chilling awakening that forced us into action. And what's interesting is that our action does seem similar, and it does seem coordinated, because it's all led by that same desperation, that same fear, and that same passion to just, you know, fix this horrible problem in social cohesion that we've come up against, and return to a truly inclusive and multicultural society like we know that we can have here. You know, coming from Israel, and I know I'm on a little bit of a tangent, but I'll come back to the campaign in just a second. Coming from Israel, I know what coexistence looks like, and I know what multiculturalism, even in the toughest of environments, looks like. In Israel, you know, you live and work and communicate with so many different groups of people, and you may have very differing views on various things, or differing language, but you still coexist, and you still have mutual understandings. And here the gaps are much bigger. You'd be surprised, but the gaps are much bigger here. And so the level of misunderstanding and misinformation actually here in Australia is a lot bigger, and it's a lot deeper. So with that icy cold awakening, I think many of us were spurred into action. And we're only so lucky that organizations like AJA and other organizations, you know, actually are able to support these efforts and get behind them, because it is really difficult. So as for our campaign, we started a third-party organization that I really only learned what it was because of Advance. Advance existed before we did. We were aware of the No campaign. We had watched it roll out. We watched how organized Advance was and the kind of language they used. And when time came that we wanted to do something against the Greens here in Brisbane, I knew who to turn to, and I asked Advance about their strategies and what they were doing, and they were very open. From that first meeting with them, though, I actually didn't speak to them again until the campaign was over. So we kept a healthy distance the whole time. Sorry, baby. Eddie, sorry, just 1 second. Hava, sorry, okay. Okay. Here in Brisbane, we had a few Greens sitting MPs. We had Michael Berkman in Maywar, and we had Amy McMahon in South Brisbane. The Greens aimed to add another 8 seats across Queensland in the Queensland state election, it took place last October. This was a huge undertaking for them, and they campaigned really, really aggressively. But what we noticed in Maywar is that towards the election, suddenly all of their aggressive rhetoric about Palestine, their aggressive rhetoric that, of course, had zero nuance and did not include anything about the hostages or anything about sort of the many multifaceted nature of this complex war, all of that disappeared from their social media towards the election. This infuriated the local community, and we were not going to let them campaign without this rhetoric that they had been delivering for so many months. So we decided to remind them and everyone of one very simple statement, which is probably the most aggressive statement ever put on a billboard in Queensland, which is the Greens support terror. And it was amazing because you'd think that we'd get sued for something that seems so defamatory, but we actually never got even one letter because even though it seems so defamatory, it's true. We were able to back it up. We were able to supply evidence and various bits of information about how this statement was true. And that's what protected us, I think, from legal action looking back. So I'm going to share my screen and just show you guys a little bit of what we actually did. Share. Okay, can you all see this? Great. Okay, so what you see here below is actually our first billboard on the left there. It's that the Greens' violent, divisive rhetoric is fueling the terror threat. This was a real quote that actually Albanese said. Now, looking back, we may find that amusing. What's interesting about this billboard is you may think, it looks like the style of Advance, and it certainly does, because we had no idea what we were doing, and the only ones who were doing anything were Advance. So we looked at their content and we said, wow, that looks good. Let's do it that way. But very quickly, we found our feet and we found our own style. As you can see on the side there, they've changed for the worse. We showed a before and after of kind of what the Greens used to be. This is also inspired by the Advance messaging of, they're not who they used to be. But from there, we kind of gained our footing and we decided to just speak our truth, the truth that our community wants so badly to get out to the world. And the way I thought of it is I wanted to display to the world the thing that we keep screaming inside of our heads and that we can't say out loud because we're at work and we have to have small talk, or we're on a bus and there's no one who cares. What's the thing that's just echoing in your head all day? And it was that the Greens are promoting one-sided extremist stances. They're indoctrinating our children. They're un-Australian, and they're endangering all of our lives. They're making Australia less safe for everyone. We deliberately didn't focus on the Jewish issue because it's not a Jewish issue. This is an issue for all of Australia, because if terrorism is being celebrated and supported, this is not safe for any Australian. I'll tell you guys just a little anecdote that out of those 12,000 flyers, 6,000 were delivered single-handedly by one man. You can imagine 6,000 flyers, what that means. Then we decided to go a little bit harder. We used to vote Green, but now they're too extreme. I personally, of course, I have never voted in Australia, but the community that we were representing here in Queensland, they had voted the Greens in. They wanted better climate solutions for Mount Cootha here in Maywar. They wanted more progressive policies. But what they got in return was radicalism and honestly, an abuse of power. And so we decided to display that. And we felt like our ownership of that message, the we used to vote green, this is what we are doing. We're not telling you what to do. We just want to give you our message. We felt like that was really powerful, and maybe a bit different from traditional political campaigning. We considered this an honor to be displayed on the Greens fundraising pages. If you see below, they're showing our billboard alongside one of Advance's billboards. And they are obviously claiming that we are one and the same, which we took as a big compliment. And I sent this screenshot to Advance, one of the few communications I had with them during that time. And we all got a bit of a laugh out of it because of the sheer hubris of the Greens party of actually distributing our content, thinking that, that it wouldn't impact anyone. I'm sure, I mean, there must have been at least a couple of people in their newsletter that looked at that content and thought, oh, is that true? So the sheer, I can't believe that they had the confidence to actually just share our material. So I was grateful to the Greens for promoting our material. Then we came up with the next step, which really I feel like was the most influential. Because in the process of doing the first half of the campaign, we were receiving so many messages of support. And most of them were not necessarily from Jewish people. Many of them were from Iranian refugees and the Iranian community, Iranian Australians. Many of them were from, other local minority groups. We even got some from Filipino groups, from Thai groups. And of course, the Hindu community rose up like this incredible tsunami tidal wave and said, we agree with you. We won't stand for this either. And what we learned in speaking to these amazing people is that us Jews, when bad things happen to us, we become very insular, and we go inside, we kind of close in on ourselves. But actually what we need to be doing is building generational bonds with our true allies. Because if you just do the simple math, if we are 160,000 in this country, the Hindus are 800,000 in this country. And the Iranian community is another 110,000 in this country. And you add on to that every little minority group that already has lived experience of terrorism and radicalism, already shares our values, but may simply lack the maybe understanding of the Australian political system or how different parties support their values. For example, the Hindu community overwhelmingly until now have been Labour voters. But many of their values simply would not align now with the Labour Party. So that piece of connection and education and bonding is really huge. And our content, while it appeals to the general public, the goal was to actually do outreach to these actual communities and show them, hey, your values and the way you're voting may not necessarily align, and maybe it's worth re-examining. That was our first exposure in the Australian, which was really amazing. We've had a lot of support from that paper. And a little anecdote is that our gorgeous Hindu model, she was online. We received comments that she's AI and that she's not real. I can vouch for the fact that she is very real, and yes, she is just that beautiful, that she looks AI. So that was kind of, fun. We had some little exchanges online. There was a lot of hate. There was a lot of support. It was very dramatic. But all in all, under the surface, the messages we received back from the Hindu community, from the Iranian community, were so incredible. And the learnings that we had about what matters to them, because that's the key, right? It's not about anti-Semitism, Jews being targeted. This is about what matters to them as well, because they share these issues as well, and things affect them that you would never even imagine. The things that they're concerned about connect to our things that we're concerned about in ways that really you wouldn't imagine. And so if we fix their problems, it fixes our problems. If we recognize the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard of Iran, as a terror organization, as Canada and the US have, that fixes our problems, or at least starts to. So we need to come out of our sort of very boxed in way of viewing things. And I understand why we view it this way, but we have allies and we need to be true friends with them, be in their living rooms, be at their dinner tables and vice versa, and really bring each other into each other's lives. We did another letterbox drop, which was really wonderful. And I suppose the highlight, which we never intended to do, was the polling day volunteering, which we said over and over we weren't going to do it. But we had so many people come to the table and say, we would love to support this. We want to be a part of this. What can we do? And just like with Simonne and Sharon, they have the most incredible ability to mobilize people, which is amazing. But we had 30 to 40 volunteers, and even that was a lot. But it was a multicultural cohort. We had Hindu and Iranian people, and what I printed on the Iranian T-shirts was "Ask an Iranian Aussie how the Greens support terror." And the best part of that day, there were so many great parts of that day, but the best part of that day was watching people walk up to these Iranians who have scars from the regime, literal scars on their faces, on their backs, come up to them and say, "Are you the Zionists?" And they look at them with pride and they say, "Yes, we're Iranian Zionists, yes." And the jaw-dropping reaction that would get. And that happened to be the day that Israel attacked Iran, which I don't know if you know, but Israel and Benjamin Netanyahu is a local hero in Iran. And so Hessam and his wife Azin, these two gorgeous people right here on the left of the Green Support Terrorism sign, they came swinging around in their truck, screaming out the window, "The day's finally arrived. Israel attacked Iran." And they came up to start volunteering. And one of the Greens volunteers said, "Did you know that Israel is attacking Iran?" As if she got them, right? She got them. And they looked at her and they smiled and they said, "Yes, isn't it amazing?" And she just looked shocked because as I compared, like here, we have such a divide of information. In the Middle East, everyone knows what's going on. Even the people who are putting on an act and who are spreading propaganda, they know what's going on. But here we're so far away and people really don't know. They don't know that this woman here in the hat, Lale, they don't know how she became a refugee and her crazy story. They forgot already about the 2022 Women Life Freedom rallies. That, by the way, many of the Jewish community, we weren't even aware of it and we didn't go. And now look how the Iranians are just every step of the way with us, every step of the way. This up here is probably my favorite photo because it just shows the reactions from that day. And Simonne and Sharon have their own stories of these reactions and they have amazing photos as well. But if you can see the blue Liberal Party people are they're just relaxing. They can take a day off, basically, just drinking their little coffee. The Labour girl doesn't know what to do. And the Greens volunteers were livid. This woman, she was amazing. I have to say, she was what an opponent. Her pitch, the way she spoke to people was so incredible. And I came up to her towards the end of the day because I genuinely felt like she was a worthy opponent. And I reached out my hand to shake her hand. And she refused to shake my hand. And she looked absolutely horrified. So that was a bit of a shame. But I have to say, yeah, we loved every moment of doing polling day because it was just such a way of exposing something new to people. But in terms of impact, we had very few people come to polling day. The vast majority of people did postal votes. And sure, every vote counts, but the postal votes are really what decided that election. And the results of the Queensland election are really, really interesting. We had, sorry, just brought it back. Okay. In the results, not only did they not gain the 8 seats they thought they would, but they lost one. They lost Amy McMahon. Michael Berkman in Maywar in my area remained by the smallest margin imaginable, and he had a 7% swing against him. Now that sounds amazing, and we get attributed that success almost entirely, which I have to say is really it's not true. It's really overshooting it. Of course, we had an impact, definitely, I don't deny that, but we have to give credit to the Australian public, who as a whole really showed that the Greens' behavior was just not good enough and not Australian. As a whole, the sentiment towards the Greens has really shifted, and people are realizing, also partially thanks to Advance's efforts, that they are not who they used to be. Now, I can guarantee that in our efforts in Queensland, I think that we swung in our minority targets. I think that we definitely swung thousands of votes there, not because we somehow brainwashed them or changed their mind, but because we simply were able to show them the connection between what they already believed and how they were voting. Because many people were simply not aware. Someone's switching off the light. Anyway, that's pretty much it about our campaign in Queensland. I'm very happy to take any questions. I'm sure Simonne is as well. And thank you so much, AJ, for hosting me.
Thank you so much, Roz. We will definitely come back to questions, and I can see there are many people with their hands up. So we will come back to both you and Simonne for question and answer. But first, we'll go to our AJA president, Dr. David Adler.
Thank you to our guests, and just a short break for our usual event promotion. And at the end of the event, we've got something very special for you to do in addition to supporting AJA. Make sure you go to the website. You can sign up as a member if you haven't done so. Make a donation if you're able to. Make sure you're following us on our massive social media. Last week, we announced a new record of 10 million views in February, which is just extraordinary. I do want to tell you that we have coming up our small party forum, and we've made a strategic decision to reward our Zoom viewers. So until 10 o'clock this evening, if you wish to attend the events in Melbourne or Sydney, we have a code called AJA Zoom, which you can put into the ticket buying app, the link, which is available in our emails and on our Facebook page, and who knows, might go into the chat shortly. You put in the code AJA Zoom between now and 10 p.m. and the cost of the tickets will reduce to zero. So that's a return thank you to those that have been regularly attending our Zoom events. Next week, we have Julie and Lisa talking about the Liberal Party policy. And I do need to do a declaration that I am on the advisory board of Advance Australia. And I want to show you one more thing, seeing that the Iranian diaspora was specifically mentioned. Each year, they announce a selection of people called Champions of Change. And last year, there were 2 Australians out of a worldwide 17 or 18 which got this award. I think it should have been Robert Gregory for his work, but they gave it to me, and the other Australian who received it was Senator Claire Chandler, who chaired the inquiry into human rights in Iran and recommended the listing of the IRGC as a terrorist organisation in Australia. So that perhaps is also a signal not just of the working relationship with the Jewish community, but specifically with AJA and the Iranian diaspora in Australia. So, Tennille, back to you for question time.
Thank you, David. And I have popped those links in the chat. It is a really special event, these small parties forums that we are running both in Sydney and Melbourne. And please do support, please go in person. You don't have to believe in the policies of these parties, but I think it is very important that you sit down in person, listen, and we have Rowan Dean in Sydney. I mean, it's an incredible event that we're putting on, so please book your tickets and please support. We had a question in the chat if we are running this in Perth in Western Australia. Unfortunately, we are only doing Sydney and Melbourne, but we, as you might have heard, ran a fantastic event with Melanie Phillips in partnership with Queensland Jewish Collective. That was in Queensland. So we are expanding into other states. So Perth, I hope we will be there soon for a visit in person and to run some events. Now, with your questions tonight, if you could please either direct them to Simonne or Roz, or if they're for both, just let us know. We'll start with Alan Friedman, please.
Thanks, Tennille. And yes, this is a question to either of you, Roz and Simonne. And as you have noted, the Greens were once a party that focused on environmental issues, but it seems that they have made a deliberate attempt to move to the radical left of the political spectrum. And it's strange because you would think that this is not likely to win votes from mainstream Australia. Have you got any inside information or any thoughts as to why they might have done this?
I think maybe Simonne, if you want to start with that question, and then we'll go to Roz's answer.
There seems to be a lot of people on board when we see them in the city every week, and they're probably thinking they're the people that are going to vote for them.
Roz, do you want to comment on?
I think that that's a really good question. I can't say that I know the answer. I can only say that I think we've all witnessed a trend of this, and I read this in The Spectator. I can't remember who wrote it, but it was an excellent way to put it, an omni-cause, that all the same people who are supporting the most extreme things now that we can't even imagine are also supporting other extreme radicalist policies that we wouldn't support. And I suppose this could be kind of traced back to perhaps a loss of identity or a loss of pride in our own civilization, which is something that Melanie Phillips speaks about. And then sort of latching on to whoever is most activating. And research shows that rage and anger are the most activating of emotions. And so if you are a leader with malintent and you want to activate masses of people, the best emotion for you to stir up in them is anger. And so it is, and you know, this is what we see on social media, right? Where do we see the most comments and how do things sort of get the most riled up? It's through that emotion. So I know I haven't totally answered your question, but I think that we can see certain trends tying various groups together. And unfortunately, our Iranians know this story very well because it's exactly what occurred for them before the 1979 revolution, which changed all of their lives for the much, much worse. It's when the sort of student generation with so much anger and so much restlessness gets latched onto certain ideas that have really, really bad intent, but are framed in really positive ways. And then they just get led down a really dark path. I think that's just perhaps it's one part of it. So in some ways, the Greens were perhaps hijacked, because if someone got Bob Brown in a locked room and actually got him to open up a bit, I'm sure he would say this was not his plan.
Thank you. Now, I have been reminded that because this is recorded on YouTube and played on J-Air, if I could just read out the event link so people could book. That is for the Sydney Small Parties Forum, events.humanitix, humanitix.com/small parties forum SID, SYD. And for Melbourne, it's events.humanitix.com/Small Parties Forum MELB, MELB. Anne, please unmute. Is that coming through? Are you
No, you
able
haven't
to
unmuted. Haven't
unmute?
Might have to take someone else while he works it out.
Okay, we'll come back to you. We'll go to Maurice first.
Koidam Kol Kolakabod to Simonne and Roz. Wonderful work. Simonne, you neglected to mention in your opening that there was another rally that you and Sharon organised for the launch of the Greens candidate in McNamara, where the Greens were a no-show. The participants' audience here are a national audience, and I think you should mention that to them. And to Roz, what have you got planned for the federal election? How's the funding looking?
You want me to go first?
You go first, Simonne.
Okay. Yes, we heard that Adam Bant was going to be having a barbecue and with the McNamara candidate, and we put it out there on WhatsApp and Facebook groups that we are going to hold a protest to show them that they don't represent us. And we feel that they somehow found out about it because the barbecue got cancelled. We all turned up, many people in their 50s and 60s and 70-year-olds in over 30-degree heat, and we all managed to get there. But they didn't, and they cancelled their barbecue. So it shows that we absolutely are rattling them.
That was amazing, Simonne. I was watching that occur. Good job. I had no idea what would happen. Look, the federal election, we do have some plans. Some of our stuff has already started rolling out. I'm actually going to just let you guys all be in for a treat with that one. But in terms of our funding, we didn't want to do anything for the federal election. Like I said, you know, to anyone here listening who thinks that we're some big, coordinated, ambitious effort, we never wanted to do this. When I did the Queensland campaign, I had a newborn and a toddler. You've met the toddler, but I had a newborn. It was not my plan. And now certainly with the newborn being almost 1 year old and tearing down the house, it's still not my plan. But the one thing I said was, if we were going to do something, it would have to fill a gap, which I think we are. So I'll let you guys enjoy that. And the other thing was, I said I didn't want to take, just because we really crowdfunded from just our friends and our community for the last campaign. It was $35,000, and it was in hundreds and 200s and 300s, and it was just people's working money. And I said, I don't want to do that again. So if we're going to do it again, it needs to be done a little bit differently. It needs to be people with slightly bigger means. And so whatever we are doing, thankfully, is backed in a slightly more comfortable way. So that's really good. It's still just working people in the community, but at least it's like slightly people that it's just a little bit easier for them.
Thank you. We'll go to one of our volunteers from Melbourne. Ilan, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, hello. Thank you. And this has been a great conversation. Thank you, Simonne and Tennille and Rosalind, for what you've said, and for also, Rosalind, moving to Australia, but not just Australia, to Brisbane, my hometown originally, even though I now live in Melbourne. So nice that somebody's moving back to Brisbane rather than coming down here. Over the last few months, I've personally taken a bit more of an active involvement rather than trying to talk common sense to people in echo chambers on social media. I got involved with the Put the Greens Last campaign.
Ilan, you've just got to ask a brief question.
Brief question. Oh, okay. Sorry. This is like the Oscars. There's been a lot of comment from friends of mine, almost not friends of mine, when I mentioned that I've been doing this campaign through Advance, and their first comment is they're homophobic, they didn't vote for the vote on gay marriage, they're racist. I find it all very much an extreme. You're either on this side or this side, but I think the further the left go, everyone's on the right side. You know, there's no more room. How do you respond to comments?
How does the gay Jew who likes advance respond to that? It's a great question. Sorry, I know this was kind of also for Simonne, but I jumped in. Look, the beautiful thing about democracy and the West and Western civilization, or any civilization for that matter, by the way, I mean, is that we all have such diverse viewpoints, and we all have the ability to exercise our common sense and decide on the value of certain ideas on an issue-based basis, which is how I wish all of society would operate and how I wish our politics would operate. And we also have the ability to judge people as they come. So I personally, I have, you know, I was raised religious. I have a deep love for my Jewish traditions. I'm ethnically Jewish. I'm an indigenous Jew to the Levant. You know, this is my bloodline. I love our words and our prayers, but I have zero faith in a God. Although it's funny because when I speak to the Christians that I work with and with the religious Jews that I work with, I often tell them that, you know, I'm so angry at this God that I don't believe in, but if I'm so angry, there must be someone that I'm angry at. So maybe the fact that I say I don't believe is not so true after all. However, advance has been nothing but absolutely honest, transparent, direct, and easy to deal with. And that is how I'm judging them. And everything, from the moment I messaged Matthew Sheehan for the first time, before I ever did anything, before I was even a hint of somebody, and he was a big director of this big campaigning company, he responded the same day and he met me the next day. And this is how I judge people. He's down to earth. And look, we're not going to agree on every single issue, you know? But that's good too. Why can't we have a diverse democracy where we can have fierce debate? Why are we all cornered into this mess that we're in a position to actually be easily manipulated? Let's hope we're not, right? Let's hope everyone that we're being told to trust is trustworthy. But we are in a very desperate position because our democracy is not a democracy anymore, because the extremism is so extreme on one end that we're all being forced in another direction. So does that, I went all over the place. Does that answer your question?
And Simonne, would you like to comment as well?
I think Roz summed it up pretty well, to be honest. Again, my dealings with Advance have been exactly the same. Totally transparent, very helpful. Nothing was too much trouble. I think we've now built a really good relationship, and very quickly, because we only did that within 4 weeks. And yeah, I think she summed it up pretty well.
Okay, wonderful. Then we'll go to Anthony Greenberg. Please unmute.
That's me. He's the mute one. Roz and Simonne, kol hakavod, love what you've said. I hope that you are going to cover all the electorates, New South Wales and Victoria, with those posters. They are amazing. That's what we need. You know, we've got an election coming, and this election is a really serious one. And apart from the posters about the Greens, one of the problems is they mainly win seats through Labour preferences. So is there a possible way that you can start to wedge Labour about preferencing an extremist, dangerous party?
Good.
If either of you want to take it, Simonne, Roz.
I'll just say that Labour definitely deserves a little bit of attention. That's all I'll say for now. But don't worry. We've got your back. We hear you. We see how the swing away from the Greens in our electorates here in Queensland all went to Labour. And we see how Labour sits quietly and enjoys both sides of this issue and gains from both sides. In a headline in a newspaper somewhere said that they speak out of both sides of their mouth. And I think that that's extremely accurate. So maybe someone somewhere will try to expose that.
Simonne, any comment on the question?
See what Roz said, and yeah, I think there are things happening in the background, and yes, you'll see some things happening soon.
Thank you. I might go to Matthew, who has comment on that question as well. Would you like to unmute? That's Matthew Ogilvie. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I just want to say we're over in Western Australia and we're campaigning. Look, full disclosure, I'm in the Liberal Party. We're campaigning very hard on Labor preferencing the Greens, and we'll see the result of that, I hope, this Saturday. But certainly there's a lot of anger towards the Greens, and the fact that Labor's preferencing them, and especially in Mount Lawley, which is an electorate with, I think, about 10% Jewish population. People are like Jewish people and Gentiles like myself are pretty angry about that. So let's see how we go on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, and we wish you all the best of luck on Saturday. We might go to Denise. Please unmute.
Hi, Roz. How are you? Hi, thank you, Roz and Simonne. I've got a quick question. There's some how to vote cards going out in the Muslim community. I'm not sure if anyone's seen those yet, and I'm wondering if there's an action that perhaps some of the people who feel like they want to do something and not sure how, maybe there's something that they can do around some of those how to vote cards.
So we are aware of this, but again, I will always advocate for the right of every single group to kind of display their value system and support their communities. So I would always hope that every community would definitely be activated and be active in an election cycle. It is their right. There is a lot of compliance and sensitivity around what third parties are allowed and not allowed to do. I myself am in conversations with the Electoral Commission about what we are allowed to do in terms of voting education. I don't have final answers yet because the laws are actually quite complex. I was literally on the phone with them today. So I suppose I would hope that that organization is being compliant. And if they are, and that is something that is possible, I would hope that other organizations would do the same.
Thank you, Simonne. If not, I'll go to Ben for his question, please.
Yeah, hi. Just more of a personal question to Roz. I'm just so impressed by your articulation, by the slogans you came up with. Where does that all come from? One, and two, are you considering a sort of career in politics? Three, are you guys more connected to the Jewish community now through the work you've done? And how's that affected your career? So you can pick and choose.
Thank you so much. It's really kind. Sorry, Simonne?
I'm happy to pick a couple out of that. I will never go into politics. And how's it affected my career? It hasn't. I'm a stay-at-home mum. I've forgotten a couple of the other questions. What were your other questions, Ben?
He's muted. We can't go back.
It was about the
Sorry,
slogans, where the slogans come from.
Yeah.
I'll let Roz handle that one because she came up with them.
Thanks. I guess there's two things that we always went back to. One was the founding question, which was, what's the thing that we're all screaming in our heads all day long? I'm going to put it on a billboard. That's really just what I wanted. I wanted to just put what's in our head on a billboard. So that was the first guiding principle. And the second one is what our other co-director says, Josh Turier. He says, when you're in doubt, just go back to the truth. what's just true. And incredibly, insanely, unbelievably, it is true that the Greens support terror. We looked at it every which way. It is just true, which is so sad to say. So we just said we want to show people the truth. We're not trying to manipulate. We're not trying to change minds. In campaigning, it is near impossible to change someone's mind. Their research just shows how people are so disconnected. They're so focused on their own lives. We just wanted to show the truth, and whoever it rings true for and rings a bell with them will listen.
Thank you.
Oh, and regarding a career in politics, it was never my plan. My partner Hava maybe is a little bit of a different story, but for me, I will be out of a job after this election cycle, so you're welcome to hire me.
Thank you, Roz. Jeff, please unmute.
Shalom. Roz, I would not have bothered to shake hands with a woman who is an avid and a rabid anti-Semite. I would have thought that you could actually attack their policies and discredit them. Point out to them that the only reason they attack Jews is because they need somebody to hate because their policies don't work. Go and attack them on their policies. Their classical policies are climate lunacy, and if you can discredit them on any one of them, you can make them blush, which will be quite a job to do. Sea levels, for instance, there is no such thing as rising sea levels for the simple reason that Tuvalu and Elwood Beach is the same. Something like that, and make them blush.
If either of you want to take this one? Or comment?
I think Jeff is still speaking, but he's on mute. Was it Jeff? Sorry.
Yeah, Jeff, you've gone mute, but I think it was a comment rather than a question.
We are coming to the end of our session. So I would also like to mention to everyone who's watching tonight or listening in, volunteering is something that is really important and can make a huge difference. If you would like to volunteer, whether that be for with Alliance or whether that be up in Queensland, or I'm sure Matthew would love some supporters on Saturday if you're over there in Western Australia. But if you do want to volunteer, you can email AJA, that's office@jewishassociation.org.au with your name and electorate, and we'll be able to forward you to the appropriate department. I would like to ask our guests one final question, and that will go to Simonne first and then to Roz. Could you tell us before we finish off for the night how to further support the work you're doing and what you'd like to see back from the community?
To further support us, we'd ask you to join J United on Facebook and WhatsApp through emailing me. What you can do further is, if this isn't your thing and you don't want to stand and help, you know, with the flyers or do a letterbox drop, that's fine too. We have plenty of projects for people to work on. That we have, a multitude of things going on where people can help, and we can always find something for someone to do. So yeah, it's an everyone effort. It's not just a one-person effort to fight anti-Semitism. So we ask everybody to step up, both in our community and the non-Jewish people from other communities. Like Roz said earlier, that it's about actually having relationships on the ground with other communities. That's the only way that our community is going to thrive and survive.
Yeah, I completely agree. I agree that the J United community is so active and such a great sort of environment to belong to, recommended. As for us, if anyone wants to support or get involved or follow our work, just feel free to shoot me an email at hello@qldjewishcollective.org, and I can direct you to what things to follow or what to look after or sign you up to our newsletter. But I'd suppose, to continue what Simonne is saying, something that I would hope that everyone would do more of is look around you at work or at the supermarket or at your neighbors and try to identify if the people around you are part of groups that would share the values that you have, even if you didn't really have a connection with them before, or they're not quite your normal friend group. I really think that we should be building deeper bonds with the Hindu community specifically. Because if we can help our children feel familiar and close with each other, they will be able to be stronger for each other, and it won't be such hard work to engage with each other. If we get our children to be together and befriend each other early on, or really start doing projects together, I think that this can set us up to be safe no matter what happens down the line, because we cannot control all of the results of elections, and we cannot control the results of things that are happening worldwide and the spread of radicalism worldwide, but we can control who we align with. And I guess what I would want for my daughter is that, you know, we have our Hindu neighbors, they literally live just across the block, and we're very, very close with them. And when my daughter was describing her family at daycare, she said, you know, Ima and Mama and Pranav. And Pranav is the son, the little son of our Hindu neighbors. And she described him as part of our family. And that was just so wonderful for me to hear, because I know that she will be set up to bond with that culture easier down the line.
Thank you so much. And it's incredible how these grassroots organizations, if you think about every organization started somewhere, even AJA, which is now, we are proud to say, have the most incredible social media reach, the largest of any Jewish organization in Australia. Everything starts grassroots with people like both of these fabulous women who are passionate, who are strong-willed, and are willing to stand up for what is right and what is just. So it is just incredible to see these grassroots movements that are fighting back and trying to make a difference. I'd like to thank our guests, Simonne, Roz. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you for spending your time with us tonight, sharing your message, and thank you for joining us. And I remind everyone, this is recorded, available on YouTube, will be played tomorrow on J-Air, also available on our Facebook page. So please share this recording with everybody you know, and thank you so much. Good evening, everybody.